Welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super review. I'm going to keep this one pretty short and sweet. There's not really a whole lot going on in this episode. So, episode 83 features the birth of Bulla or Bra. The translation said Bulla, but of course, that's just a translation thing. Bra and Bulla are both okay. But yes, if you did not know, she is younger than Pan. I did a video talking about this where I speculated when they would introduce her as a character. It's about a year old now. It's been a while. But I talked about it there. She's about a year younger than Pan. That kind of speaks about the timeline of the show and where it's at and how far it's progressed so far. So there's that. I feel like they took liberties with that, and she's being born a little bit later than she should be because it just seems like time has flown a little differently in the show. But I digress. We haven't had any concrete information, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly what's going on. And yeah, she is canon too. So yeah, there's that. But anyways, it was pretty cool. I'm not going to talk about like a full recap because long story short, Bra is born and Goku and Gohan are basically deciding who the remaining members of the team will be. That's it. But it was pretty cool to see Vegeta basically in the episode like, oh, that's my daughter. I have to figure out a name for her. And I was like, this guy is so sentimental, right? He's like, oh, I got to figure out a name for my daughter and all that stuff. And it is cool to see like the developed moments of Vegeta because, people talk about how the manga is doing this thing for Vegeta. They're handling his character a little bit differently. They're showing that he's progressed and he's developed as far as, fighting goes, whereas the anime kind of handles him a little bit differently. And I can agree with that. But one thing that the anime does do really well with the Vegeta character is they show his human side a lot more. He's not human per se, right? But you know what I mean? They show that softer side of him a lot more. And that speaks a lot more as far as volumes of the character go, as far as character progression. I've talked about this so many times with Vegeta. He has so many layers now, whereas in DBZ, he was just one guy, no layers. To him, he's fight and I'll kill you. That's it. And some people like that. And some people like the way he's turned out now. I personally do like that because it's added a lot more depth to him. It's not that he's not that character anymore. It's just he can turn that on or off now. So I think that makes him a lot more versatile too. And you get to see a lot more comedy moments with him because in the episode too, he was like, it seemed like he was kind of waiting for Bulma to kind of like bring the baby over to him. And then he was getting frustrated when she was letting everybody see and hold the baby. He was just like, and then he kept turning Super Saiyan Blue. Like he's about to just, and then he saw Yamcha. He's like, bro, I'm about to kill this man. I'm about to kill it. If he touches my baby, ooh. And then he went Super Saiyan Blue, ooh. And then I was like, man, Vegeta's about to go off on somebody. And then Trunks and Goten pop out and they hold the baby and, Bulma kind of catches it finally, and she's like, hey, take the baby over there. And then Vegeta's like, okay, I have to figure out a name. And then she's like, oh, I figured out one. He's like, I guess it's not that bad of a name. So it's pretty cool, seeing that. And I always love those moments with Vegeta because you didn't get moments with Vegeta and Bulma in Dragon Ball Z. You just didn't. You didn't get moments like that. Even in the Buu saga, I mean, he had that homage moment where he was like, hey, Trunks, I've never been a father to you when he did the Majin Vegeta explosion thing. But you never saw the moments like you saw in episode 2, for example, of Dragon Ball Super where Vegeta took his family out. You don't see that. And it's always cool to see the interaction between those guys. And honestly, on a more philosophical level, just the relationships in the show, right? Because Gohan and Videl, you see that a lot. I mean, you saw that in the earlier portion of the Buu saga, but you see a lot of that. You see Krillin in 18, like when she was patching him up, when Goku punched him and all that stuff. And, it's pretty cool seeing that. I think that's one thing that Super does really well, which is why I think that Super could excel as a show that just did that type of thing and didn't really focus so much on fighting. I feel like they could, really excel in that way. But of course, it's Dragon Ball. All some people care about, I want to say some, is the action. So there are people that just don't care for that, and they're younger. Maybe or maybe they just have a preference, whatever it is. So in the later half of it, in the middle of all this, Goku and Gohan basically started doing image training to kind of scale where Krillin would be, and I think they put him up against Lavenda. I get those brothers confused, but I think it was Lavenda. Either way, they kind of thought about it like, well, can Krillin actually beat this guy? And Krillin wound up losing that image training session, if I recall correctly. But regardless, Goku was like, he's been training, so he's got other moves. And next week is basically going to be an all Krillin episode, it seems, with some Krillin and Gohan sparring. Gohan looked like he may have been struggling a little bit, but of course he's still in his base form. People misunderstand. He will have that little bang popping down if he's Ultimate Gohan. He doesn't have that bang popping down half the time, majority of the time, so he's not Ultimate. He's just base form. So I guess it still shouldn't make sense, but I mean, that's a liberty you can take with that. So it is cool that they're deciding that Krillin and all these other guys will be there. And something interesting in there too is, when they talk about quality of life of the mortals, whenever we were talking about Zeno and all that stuff, and the universes that are, don't have to participate in this tournament, they had the higher qualities of life. And it seems like power could be a factor. Not that it determines the quality of life, but it could be a factor because they did talk about that, right? The Goku asked if there were other strong fighters in the universe, or I think it was Gohan maybe. Either way, the Supreme Kai's like, hey, I don't know. I never looked at them in that perspective. And Beerus was like, that's part of the reason why we have such a low mortal ranking. So that could be a factor. So the Supreme Kai did go off and look at those other universes to see if there are other fighters that could partake in this, but we already know who the 10th fighter will be. They basically pulled up everybody but Tien, so I'm assuming that there's not going to be anybody stronger than Tien. So they also talked about Goten and Trunks. I know people wondered that. I mean, they generally tend to leave them out of stuff like this because, they're just kids. I mean, that's an excuse. They're probably about 13, 14 now, or they should be about 13 or 14 about now. But regardless, they're still kids. And Goku says, hey, they're a little too straightforward. In something like this, we need tacticians, basically, is what he's saying. We need guys with experience, which is where Master Roshi comes in. And that's one of the things that I really did want to see is, this is a battle royale. Master Roshi basically proved that he can hold his own in a battle royale in the Frieza arc, where he's knocking out a whole bunch of grunts and Frieza grunts and stuff like that. And there's going to be about 80 characters in the ring at once. That's fine. We're not going to get introduced to all those characters. Don't get your hopes up. They're not all going to be strong either. Some of those guys are just going to go flying out of the ring. We're only going to get to see maybe 15, 20 of them. I'm calling that now because that's just the logical way for a show to do this. And this will probably wind up being about another 10, 15 episodes max, the arc. So I don't know. It is different, but the 10th fighter will be Tien because I don't believe they mentioned him, or Piccolo, one of the two they didn't mention. But let me know your thoughts on the episode if you enjoyed it in the comment section down below. And hope you guys had an awesome day. Thank you for tuning into this review, and I'll catch you guys next week for the next episode review. Until then, stay swaggy. Peace.